short version, but sometimes more words get you more hits when people do a search.
We are live on Facebook and YouTube.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to our Facebook viewers and our YouTube viewers around the world.
I told Andy earlier that he was shouting, so now he's whispering, but I think he can find a happy medium somewhere, especially as I get louder as I talk into microphones.
Okay.
But we're happy to be here as Pride Month takes off, and we have a lot of Pride-related news, and we're about to start the show.
We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrop.
And happy Christopher Street Liberation Month. And it's also, as we tape, HIV Long-Term Survivors Day.
Yeah, and Pride Month is kicking off around the world with parades and protests, a presidential proclamation, and Dr. Jill Biden at Pittsburgh Pride. We're going to show you lots of different things.
Rise and resist dogs Trump through his conviction as a felon.
Well, they deserve the payoff. They spent so many months going
providing
after
the visuals for his infamy.
And mainstream media finally picked up those visuals.
Always.
Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson, a monster, is teeing up a far-reaching right-wing bill to be voted on immediately if Republicans win the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Don't let it happen. The Texas GOP really goes off the deep end, and that's saying a lot for them, and may have the votes next year to take the state with them.
Why don't they just secede?
Well, they were a republic at one time.
I'm not willing to give up our people in any place, but man, it's really ludicrous there. A great out PBS pioneer, helped invent PBS, Jack Venza, has died. We'll tell you about him.
A new documentary says O.J. Simpson's deadly domestic violence was rooted in homophobia.
And while Jill Biden was at the Pittsburgh Pride Parade, the Prime Minister of Thailand marched in the Bangkok Pride Parade.
And Mexico elected a pro-LGBTQ president, the first woman and the first Jewish person.
And we lost Israeli leader Yael Dayan, who championed women's and LGBTQ rights and appeared on Gay USA. We have the videotape.
It's almost more than 30 years ago. France and the UK retreat on gender-affirming care for minors.
We will mark HIV Long-Term Survivors Awareness Day.
And the CDC has finalized its endorsement of DoxyPep for men who have sex with men and trans women. We will explain.
Yes, that's post-exposure prevention of sexually transmitted infections.
So, I learned that it is Pride Month. The president issued a proclamation about it.
So I heard.
We will link to his proclamation because it's very thorough in terms of what, he talks about things like, for generations, LGBTQI Americans have summoned the courage to live authentically and proudly, even when it meant putting their lives and livelihoods at risk, and goes on about some of his achievements on behalf of the community.
Certainly.
But the problems that we're also up against. It's a 2-page thing, and we will link to it in our email, which you can sign up for at gayusatv.org.
I'm always happy to hear aggressively good words. The actions, some good, some bad, whatever, from everybody. But when someone puts out a statement that really is no holds barred, that really says what needs to be said, I appreciate that. He talks about the great diversity of the American people and its importance, and he says, wave flags at Pride high. Yeah.
And he's got the backs about transgender children, but he even says that when he does the State of the Union message.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, made a surprise appearance at,
We're skipping over a thing.
Okay.
We have to start with the Stonewall National Monument, where they had the annual flag raising at the beginning of Pride Month. And we heard from someone you may be familiar with at the beginning of that ceremony.
Right back at you. And thank you so much, Stephen Love Menendez, who has just done a brilliant job of decorating this park with these flags every year. Thank you to the Parks Department, with whom we've worked for years very, very happily. Happy to see that the Secretary of the Interior found that it was stupid to keep uniformed park rangers out of Pride marches, so we are happy to welcome them back.
Yay, Julie! Yay, Julie!
And of course, we're here in memory also of my good friend Gilbert Baker, who was involved in creating this flag. And I'm very happy to see all the various manifestations of the flag. The flag is the flag no matter how many stripes or how many colors or how it's done. It is just a glorious symbol. And it's a symbol all over the world of freedom and pride. We see images of it everywhere. It is an inspiration to activists all over the world. So we are here in our little group today in sunshine and peace, but activists all over the world are looking at this and taking this flag and using it as a rallying cry in much more dangerous places. So I'm very proud to hoist this on this flagpole. So thank you all for coming. See this flag as an important symbol of peace and freedom. And let's celebrate this month and every month, and keep an eye on these flags, because last year the vandals were really vicious. So let's maintain these. Thank you all.
Yay! Shout out to the volunteers.
And behind those sunglasses, that was Ann Northrop.
I also said Parks Department when I should have said Park Service, because it's the Federal Park Service. And I don't know why the video came out so narrow, but show the picture. There were actually a lot more of us there. There's in the orange shirt on the far right, the towering J.W. Walker, who makes me look very small. I like to think I'm not that small. And next to him, between us, Stephen Love Menendez, who really is a genius, who gets these flags put up on the park
There's
over here.
one of our National Park Service rangers there.
Julie, who was cited by the crowd. And,
Yes.
But it's also, look at the flag. This is, I love this version because it's just stripes straight across, but it's black, brown, and then the trans colors of light blue and pink and white, and then the traditional colors of the original Pride flag. It's all in there together, but everything is the same, and I think that's
all the colors of the rainbow and more.
definitely more. You know, I used to tell Gilbert I wasn't thrilled with the flag, but it's growing on me.
And as you were saying, Dr. Jill Biden did speak at Pittsburgh Pride, and we have a video report on that.
In attendance at today's Pittsburgh Pride festivities was First Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden. The First Lady was in Erie this morning, delivering the commencement address at Erie Community College before coming to the Steel City. And in her remarks, Dr. Biden said amidst attempts to strip the rights of community members nationwide, the courage of those celebrating this month has never been more important.
History teaches us that our rights and freedoms don't disappear overnight. They disappear slowly, subtly, silently. A book ban, a court decision, a don't say gay law. In some way, all of you here today have called upon your courage, and you've used your voice to say, we will not go back.
The First Lady also took time to meet with festival goers before her speech.
I like her speech.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah.
And I like what they did in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Defying Governor DeSantis's essential ban on lighting up bridges on anything but red, white, and blue in the state.
For the whole summer.
Yeah, Freedom Summer. What a grotesque corruption of that
Yes,
phrase, because
yes.
that was about the civil rights movement. Anyway, we're down in
San Marco,
yeah.
which is in the Fort Lauderdale area. So one of the activists around there was out of town, and he heard this thing about DeSantis.
He was out of the country.
Correct. DeSantis ordering that only red, white, and blue could be on bridges or anywhere else. And so he called a few friends back in Fort Lauderdale, and he said, we got to do something about this, and let's do this special event. Maybe 20 or 30 people will show up.
They got 70 people. They held flashlights in 6 different colors to light up the Main Street Bridge in rainbow colors. This organizer was Matt McAllister. He said, celebrating freedom is great. Exercising it is better.
Yeah. And they're going to hold a march there on the 29th. So if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area or San Marco where this was.
And many cities down there are flying pride flags in Florida, partly in response to the push to ban them, which didn't actually happen. And New York State and New York City, where everything is in rainbow.
Yeah, now I want to get a little more explicit about this. So New York City and New York State buildings, municipal buildings, governmental buildings are lit up in rainbow colors all over and are flying flags in scores and scores of places in official government buildings. The Florida cities are defying the governor across the board, many of them raising rainbow flags all over the place. In Carlisle, Mass., someone stole 200 flags, I think like those little flags that Stephen puts up around the Stonewall Park, and the city replaced them immediately, 200 flags. Miami Beach held its first Pride concert. The Los Angeles County Library has a rainbow parenting program operating this month.
This is going to be very triggering for that lifeguard in California.
The Secretary of Health and Human Services, Xavier Becerra, did this whole elaborate proclamation. He put out a press release. Every single department of HHS had a statement about Pride.
As well they should.
Stars are coming out all over the place. A pro wrestler came out, a Bridgerton star, a baby reindeer star. They're all just coming out for Pride. We won't even go into all the details.
And I think people are also inspired by the politics of the time. They want to make They want to make a statement, given how we're so much under attack.
Of course. All right. So.
And Philadelphia's response to this was to have the biggest drag queen story hour ever, 263 people, at the National Constitution Center, no less, organized by the Philadelphia Gay News.
Well, it's very nice. I have to say 263 in attendance doesn't sound like a huge number, but it's the first time.
It got on the Guinness Book of World Records.
Well, they invited the Guinness Book of World Records in to establish a base number that everyone else can now try to.
I actually prefer the story hour in smaller groups.
Well, like our lectures in schools, our meetings with students, we always went into established classes. We didn't want to do big auditoriums full of people. We wanted to do small groups. But if you're going to do this, that's your baseline now.
All right. Can we talk about the Trump verdict a little?
Oh, please.
Well, the trial was not about his tryst with Stormy Daniels, but because Trump and his lawyers were so adamant that he didn't have sex with her, her testimony ended up being crucial in convincing to the jury that this is what he paid Michael Cohen to cover up and falsify the business records to do. And I just want to quote Stormy. She finally spoke after the verdict, and she said, "I think he should be sentenced to jail in some community service, working for the less fortunate, or being the volunteer punching bag at a woman's shelter."
Well, people have also made the point that because of her dignity and credibility, that it's really time for people to stop stigmatizing sex workers.
And start stigmatizing rapists.
Rapists and liars and cheats and corrupt politicians. Let's treat them that way. And she really did a lot to help the industry and to bring dignity to herself and her peers.
Well, Trump was dogged every day of the trial and outside Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue afterwards by our comrades at Rise and Resist. So can we, there they are. Trump is guilty. I mean, this provided the visuals. There were some Trump supporters who showed up at the Trump Tower, but this was the counter to that when they got uptown.
Versions of this picture were on every newspaper, every news show. It finally paid off for the Rise and Resistors, although they had their own problems because they got attacked by some of the MAGA types and had to be rescued from a crowd. I can't remember.
Well, this is the violence we worry about. I mean, I listened
Yeah.
to Ted Koppel wade into a Pennsylvania MAGA rally, and they're unabashed about there will be a war, there will be violence if he isn't restored to the throne.
I can't remember what our other picture there was.
Well, outside the outside the Trump.
Yes.
This is outside Trump International Hotel in Columbus Circle. They listed his 34 felonies on the sidewalk, and
Well, this is by Karen Shaw, who is a Rise and Resist member and is famous for her chalkings of various slogans and things on the sidewalk. So after the verdict, she went there and she just wrote count 1 guilty, count 2 guilty, and just did 34 counts down the sidewalk. Very, very impressive.
now the Federalist Society, makers of the 6-2 reactionary majority on the Supreme Court, flew the American flag upside down this week to protest the conviction, and in solidarity with their most loyal and corrupt acolyte on the court, Samuel Alito, who has refused to recuse himself from the case against Trump stemming from the Trump leading the January 6th coup attempt. I mean, and if you read his excuses for this, it's just lies, lies, lies. Totally not credible. And of course, the Chief Justice will do, and the rest of the court will do nothing about it. But at his vacation home, Alito's protesters dressed as characters from The Handmaid's Tale demonstrated outside there.
Very clever.
And by the way, that's a good reminder that this week in Congress, the House or the Senate are doing bills to try to just protect the right to contraception, no less abortion, to put Republicans on the spot about it.
Now, I think Alito is just a hideous monster and liar and everything else. But there's got to be some kind of line drawn about recusal, because there are certainly progressive justices who we like who have said things that could be considered political. Ruth Bader Ginsburg went after Trump. Sonia Sotomayor has said some things that were, overtly partisan or political. And I don't want to get in a situation where we have to go into a fight about, well, what about yours? What about ours? So.
And Northrop, champion of free speech. And by the way, that NRA case was argued by the ACLU, saying that New York State went too far in the way they went after them. It was, and they had, it was wrong. So.
And much as we have celebrated in the last week the rule of law, and the verdict in the Trump trial, I then look at Hong Kong and the convictions in court of activists there, and the fact that the court there is not upholding freedom or freedom
Absolutely
of speech.
not.
So let's not get too carried away with the
So to finish up on
miracle of the court.
I think Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and his prosecutors and Judge Merchan and the jurors all deserve the Medal of Honor for doing their jobs in the face of relentless death threats. And as a convicted felon, Trump is now barred from immigrating to or visiting 37 countries, including Canada and the UK, where he has golf courses.
I'll be curious to see whether they uphold that.
10 senators said in the wake of the verdict they will no longer vote to pass legislation, fund the government, or confirm administration appointees.
See, and
The usual suspects.
lots of threats about when we get into office, we're going to do all of this to you and worse.
Right. I mean, Trump this week said he's going to, lock Hillary up. Wouldn't that, just have to do it?
While
basically.
denying that he ever said that.
Well, Yes.
I never said that.
Yes, but as you said, this is only a prelude to what the Republicans will do if they take back power in November,
Yep.
or which would be in January when they take office. We've told you about Project 2025. You can look that up. But Speaker Mike Johnson is planning a sweeping ideological legislative drive that aims to make Trump the most consequential president of the modern era. A far-reaching bill with a range of policy priorities, tax cuts worth trillions, border security, rolling back Obamacare. I think they would finally be able to do it if they get all three branches there. So it's all being prepared. It's ready to go. They said we got caught by surprise when Hillary got defeated, so we didn't hit the ground running.
We thought we were going to lose. I still maintain that Trump doesn't really want to be elected this time. And I don't
think he wanted to be elected the first time.
No, he admitted that. That we know, but I don't think he wants to be elected this time either. Really, I think
he has to be to beat prison.
He doesn't really want the job. But the House Republicans today or yesterday, this week, again added anti-LGBTQ riders to military construction and veterans affairs and other stuff bill. With any luck, those will all disappear when the Senate gets a hold of it, as has happened before. But they're not, they have no shame. They keep doing this stuff, and they just are expecting that one day this stuff will get through.
And Democrats have a very tenuous hold on the Senate in this election, but Joe Manchin, the right-leaning Democratic senator, has declared himself an independent. He was supposed to retire at the end of the year. But Chuck Schumer is asking him to run as an independent now and caucus with the Democrats because it's the only way they could hold on to that seat. It's a very tough map.
Well, we may end up, I hope not, but we may end up with now a Republican Senate and a Democratic House.
Yes.
It may flip.
If we're lucky.
Yes.
Meanwhile, virtually all anti-abortion Republican candidates for the Senate and one Democrat, Bob Casey, have moderated their positions on abortion. It's quite a spectacle.
If people fall for that, I'm going to be mad.
Well, okay.
How dare you think that some Republicans saying they've changed their opinion on abortion just so they get elected, and you trust them to go into office?
I mean, these people were totally opposed to abortion. I mean,
Believe me, they still are.
Sam Brown in Nevada has gone from the chair of the Faith and Freedom Coalition to opposing a federal ban and opening up about his wife Amy's abortion.
Let's see. Check your watch on that. That opinion will last to November 5th.
And the other news that I think got buried in all of this is, more reports about Trump's use of the N-word when he was on The Apprentice. One of the producers who was under an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, came out and said it. Now, they don't have the tape. That's still being buried. But, it was basically Trump first season saying, would America buy an N-word, winning my show? And so he's speaking out now.
Yeah, the context was Trump saying, let's have two winners so that we can have a white woman winner too.
Now, this is likely to help Trump with his base, of course, but it's...
well, the base is the base.
Karl Rove did say the day before the verdict that if Trump were convicted, he'd likely lose Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
I believe that's all we need.
And speaking of bigoted language, the Pope Francis strikes again. Once again, speaking to a group of young priests, he said, gossip is a woman's thing. He also said, we wear the trousers. We have to say things. Last week it was, calling seminaries hotbeds of faggotry, and there was an apology issued for that. But instead he didn't say it, the Vatican did. And then Mayor Adams was asked about the Pope's anti-gay slur. He defended the Pope, saying those complaining were part of the word police who don't pay attention to the Pope's heart.
The Pope's heart? Okay, Eric, whatever.
And let's talk about the Texas Republicans.
Okay. For years, we've glanced at the Texas GOP convention every year for what insane things they were putting on their platform, but they seem to have gone even farther this year.
Which is a big problem because in the primaries, they got rid of a lot of the moderate Republicans anybody who opposed Ken Paxton or voted for his impeachment. They want to get rid of the House leader, who is a moderate, a Republican moderate.
They have put in, they're proposing new rules, or they put in new rules that are really disqualifying both Democratic and Republican candidates.
Yes.
They're gerrymandering everything.
Yes.
They're changing the rules.
Well, they want to make it so that this is what Alabama used to have, but finally got rid of, that you have to win more than half the counties in the state in order to win a statewide office, no matter how many votes you get.
But
It's
half the counties in the state have 10 residents.
Correct.
In Texas.
Correct. So it would make it impossible to elect a Democrat.
Yeah.
They call gender transition care child abuse. They want a don't say gay law that goes beyond Florida's. It's really, wow.
Here's the
And
good
they can
news.
do this stuff.
They can do it. The only glimmer of hope here is that the attendance at the convention was down. There were fewer people there, so maybe they're losing a little power.
I don't know.
And meanwhile, in Texas, updates on a couple of local races. Out bisexual Molly Cook, who we've been following, actually won a special election for the seat in the state Senate. And
we mentioned that Lauren Ashley Simmons, who identifies as queer, won a primary for state representative out of Houston. We did not say she beat a 5-term Democrat, Sean Thierry, I think, Thierry, who sided with Republicans on anti-LGBTQ legislation, from banning care for trans minors to removing LGBTQ themed books from libraries. And she won in a landslide.
And that's Lauren on the left.
Thierry called trans care black genocide.
Yeah, she had a lot of right-wing views, so it was great that Lauren.
She lost 2-1.
Yeah. All right. Other news.
State news. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to hopscotch here a little. The Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has ruled finally that the Office of Personnel Management discriminated against a trans man, a retired federal employee, refusing him coverage for his gender dysphoria appointments and hormones. The case took 8 years to play out, but he finally won.
Oklahoma, the House passed a trans erasure bill. It imposes a definition of sex in strict biological terms, male or female at birth, and limits how people can access public toilets and other sex-segregated accommodations. It's called the Women's Bill of Rights in a state that won't pass ERA.
Please.
Non-binary legislator Maureen Turner called it horrific. All Democrats voted against it, but there aren't very many in the legislature.
In New Hampshire, good news. A federal court struck down a law passed in 2021 in New Hampshire that barred teaching about racism, homophobia, etc. It was known as a censorship law. The court said it's too vague, it violates the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, and it is viewpoint-based restrictions, so it's out.
Now, Florida's not done with us, even though they pulled back a little bit this year. Republican Attorney General Ashley Moody wants a state investigation of Starbucks under the Florida Civil Rights Act over their diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. This despite a March federal court ruling that found Florida's Stop Woke Act preventing private companies from requiring DEI trainings to be unconstitutional. DeSantis calls these trainings self-flagellation, which sounds very kinky.
A couple of updates from Missouri. The Attorney General of Missouri, Mr. Bailey, is getting all the medical records of trans kids under the guise of consumer protection. His goal is to destroy Planned Parenthood. And
trans people.
Yeah, and he is getting records from therapists, from social workers, from hospitals. He is just gathering. It's going to be like Trump deporting them all out of the country. I don't know what he has planned, but he's also in the monster category. And an update on the gay bar in St. Louis where the cops crashed into the front of the bar. Well, the bar owner and his partner are still under prosecution. They're standing there. The cop car crashes into their bar. The cops get out of the car, abuse them, handcuff them, arrest them, and institute charges against them.
And
they're just standing there.
isn't some of this on video?
A lot of it's on video. So the bar owner is now suing the city and the cops for crashing into the bar and for prosecuting him, asking for compensatory damages. And, it's going to be the war of the courts again. They have not dropped the charges against the bar owner.
They never admit mistakes.
Never. And, the golfer Scotty Scheffler got his charges dropped because there was a little video that showed him doing nothing. It wasn't comprehensive, but they couldn't prove it yet. So the charges have been dropped because he's famous.
Well, okay. Walmart is not pulling back on Pride merch. They're even selling totes gay Pride products that they unveiled. Meanwhile, Target employees, where they have cut back, are criticizing the retailer's haphazard and reactive response to last year's right-wing reaction to their Pride merchandise. Target's gone from 2,000 items last year to 75 Pride items this year. Target sold the pullback to employees at a company town hall led by their gay higher-ups. The remaining Pride stuff, by the way, is solely for adults.
The Target employees say that the company overreacted. Walmart, surprisingly, is not reacting to the boycott threats. But the best line came from Speaker Mike Johnson, who said, "I would not want to be in Target when the rapture comes."
He did. He said that. This is the Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency.
All right. Where are we? We done that? No. Let's go to
Diamond.
Jack Venza, I think I have here first.
Okay.
In terms of the order of our pictures. We lost a giant this week. Jack Venza,
Yes.
97 years old, died at his home in Lyme, Connecticut. That's him on the right in this picture, next to his husband on the left, Daniel Routier. I'm making up that pronunciation. He invented performing arts on PBS.
Great performances.
Dance in America, live from Lincoln Center.
Music in America.
He was a scenic designer. He designed sets. And he'd come out of a small, poor town, and he'd gotten into scenic design. And then he was in a small group of people who were inventing public television, and specifically PBS. And he said, because they were going to do documentaries and stuff, and he said, we need performing arts on public television. That we need to bring culture to public television. And that was his idea.
He was a Peabody winner, the most Emmy nominations for an individual ever, 57.
I'm sorry I never worked with him, but he really had an enormous impact on the culture.
What would you do without us gays?
Well, I guess fulfilling stereotypes. And yes, back to Texas, where a 35-year-old man has been charged with the murder of trans woman Diamond Cameron Brigman, 36. She was shot dead.
Back in March.
Yeah, but we're just getting the details on that.
Okay.
And in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, a proud neo-Nazi who protested drag shows to protect the kids, but did it with violent, threatening, intimidating actions, has been arrested for having child porn in his possession, protecting the kids.
Yeah.
He's been ordered to never use the internet.
Let's go to something more positive. Gay author, professor, and activist Marty Duberman. He's been honored with the Centennial Medal by the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. He's now 93. He's written more than 25 books on progressive figures and movements, including the Stonewall Rebellion and a memoir, Cures, A Gay Man's Odyssey, because when he was young, you went into therapy to try not to be. Mm-hmm. He also wrote plays, White America, and others about Kerouac and Emma Goldman and Paul Robeson. And he edited books on notable gays and lesbians and people with AIDS. His most recent memoir, Reaching 90, in accepting this award, he said, "We've come a long way, but we need help to move further, especially in these disastrous times. Yet today's event gives me hope for a future in which being different, not cut from the same cloth, profits us all."
And you went to an event honoring Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum on the occasion of her retirement after 32 years.
32 years as the senior rabbi at Congregation Bet Simchat Torah, the gay and the LGBTQ synagogue. So they had a huge celebration at Jazz at Lincoln Center. They didn't play any jazz, but they had some opera and some Broadway tunes.
Yeah.
Because she's very into music. But there was a video tribute from President Biden and Chuck Schumer, who put her on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Biden did. And there were in-person tributes from Randy Weingarten, who was her spouse. They talked about, is it harder being married to a rabbi or a labor leader? Randy heads the American Federation of Teachers. It was hosted by Kate Clinton. Tributes to and Hillary Clinton there gave a wonderful speech, which I think I'll put on Facebook. And when I get the video, maybe we'll show some of it on this show from here. And tributes from all the rabbinical students who trained at the synagogue. The event raised more than $1.1 million for the Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum and Randy Weingarten Fund for Social Justice at Congregation Bet Simchat Torah. So it was a wonderful celebration, and it's a remarkable.
It was sold out. I couldn't get in.
Absolutely,
I applied too late.
Remarkable tenure at the synagogue.
Very remarkable.
She's only in her 60s, just a kid.
And a great activist. You could count on Sharon being at every demonstration.
And getting arrested many
Yes,
times.
Exactly. So
she was fearless.
Yes, exactly. And also a great tribute. The fire department of New York has appointed out chaplain Ann Cansfield as the director of the counseling services unit. So now we have an out lesbian chaplain running counseling for the firefighters of New York City.
And of course, Father Michael Judge, the saint of 9/11, was also a fire department chaplain and died of course in 9/11. And he was also gay.
Yes, and thank you to the LGBT group in Princeton, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. They and the ACLU have filed a complaint against the local school district, which barred a Pride book event. The school district said, "You cannot hand out these books. They are banned books. You violated the rules." And so the LGBT group said, "Okay, give us a list of the books that are banned." No such list exists. So they're filing a complaint, and we'll see how far they get with that.
So there's a new documentary about the life and murder of Nicole Brown Simpson that says,
on Lifetime,
yes, that the roots of O.J.'s abuse of his wife were in homophobia. Back in 1988, the couple and their kids were having dinner at a restaurant in Hawaii when a gay couple walked in. They exchanged pleasantries, and one of the guys kissed their young son on the forehead, and Nicole let him hold the baby. And that made O.J. go off. "Why'd you let a gay guy hold my baby?" Nicole said, "Why are you so concerned? Your father is gay." O.J.
Well, that's exactly why.
O.J. threatened to leave the island at that point. O.J.'s father was not only gay, but he was a fixture on San Francisco's drag scene, a source of rage for O.J.
Clearly.
And his father was known as Mama. And this began the physical abuse of Nicole Brown Simpson,
well,
who was killed in 1944.
I don't know if it began it, but O.J. was certainly filled with rage, and it was long-standing, and there'd been many police complaints and whatever. We can't relitigate that, but let's move on to international news.
Well, France, the Senate passed a bill to limit gender transitions for minors, passed at 180 to 136. It bans puberty blockers until after a minimum of 2 years consultation. You might as well not do it at all. The Minister of Health opposed the bill, Violations, though, are you get up to 2 years in prison and a fine of 30,000 euros.
And the UK government is further expanding or explaining their restrictions on puberty blockers. They imposed a restriction for 3 months for new patients under 18, but that applies only through the National Health Service. You can go to private doctors and get them, and those who are already on them can continue using them, and people who are using them for other than transition care can access them because these are hormones that are used for a variety of reasons. This is all under the guise of patient safety. Look, everything should be looked at carefully, but there should be a lot more.
And the Labor Party's not putting up a fight on that.
Because the government's being a little careful in how they phrase this. But really it comes back to, shouldn't this be a decision of the doctors and the family?
Not when it comes to trans people.
Or women.
Correct.
In this country.
Absolutely. It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, Pride marches are nothing new in Bangkok, Thailand. They held their 25th one, but this is the first one since marriage equality became imminent. Supposed to happen, I guess, this summer. The parade was billed as a celebration of love. The governor of Bangkok participated, but more to the point, the Prime Minister of Thailand, Srettha Thavisin, led the march. He led the march.
There he is.
The first Thai premier to do so. That is historic. I don't think we've had a president of the United States lead one. We've had the vice president, Kamala Harris, in the Washington march.
Well, and Hillary Clinton has marched. She was almost the president.
She should have been the president, if only.
Well, get Barack Obama out there leading a pride march
Yeah.
somewhere. Okay.
They all have to be a little nervous when they march in parades these days.
I'm aware
Any
of
parade.
the warnings. I'm aware of all of that. But
I don't just mean ours.
I understand, but I'm happy to see that there have been a lot of pride events already this month that have been peaceful and without incident. Although there was a Chicago Pride event that was interrupted by pro-Palestinian LGBTQ demonstrators. The march was stopped briefly.
Well, they wanted to, the mayor of Seoul, South Korea, wanted to stop the Pride March there, but thousands did march in the capital.
150,000.
For the LGBTQ festival.
We have some video of that. Let's show that while we describe this. Yeah, they've been having these marches over the years. The government's tried to interfere, has blocked them from using City Hall territory. Oh, we have a religious group that wants to use it that day. You can't use it. And they came up with an excuse again this year, a library event, I think. And so the activists in Seoul said, fine, we'll take to the streets. 150,000 people marched in Seoul, Korea. It's a gorgeous sight. So congratulations. Look at all those flags. Fantastic.
Look at the big flag in Sao Paulo. Put that picture up if you can.
Yes, Sao Paulo, Brazil, which again is maybe the biggest pride parade in the world. You can see that it's so big that we can barely get most of it in this picture. But we wanted to give you a sense of the scope of it by showing this overhead shot. That's a huge, long flag, and hundreds of thousands of people in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And a real breakthrough in Mexico. They had their big election, and we're certainly concerned about the outcome, but they elected Claudia Sheinbaum as president, the first woman and the first Jew elected there. Two things we have not done in the United States. She's a climate scientist and former mayor of Mexico City and member of the leftist ruling party. And as mayor, we have another picture, she marched in pride parades and eradicated gendered school uniforms in primary schools.
There she is.
She's a real leftist, so the current prime minister is a leftist.
She's his protege.
Right.
She's the designated successor, and she won a huge, huge victory, much bigger than people expected. as opposed to Modi in India, whose margin of victory was much smaller than expected.
And now he has to make common cause with some more moderate parties.
Well, that's good,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. And then we were sorry to see the death of Yael Dayan of Israel at 85, daughter of Moshe Dayan. And she was very pro-LGBTQ.
She was an amazing feminist leader and a leader on, when she came into the Knesset, she got them to start a committee on women's stuff and made a subcommittee on LGBTQ stuff and got things moving immediately.
So do we have any idea how she ended up on Gay USA 30 years
Well,
ago?
when she came to the United States, we had heard about her, and we said, friends, I think probably in the gay synagogue, said, you know, you should have this woman on. And I was a little, I didn't know too much about her, but I didn't do the interview here. It was a guy named
More's the pity.
Ian Miller, but we do have this video from 1993.
Yael Dayan is member of the Israeli parliament, head of the subcommittee for gay and lesbian affairs, and daughter of famed Israeli general Moshe Dayan, who is equally famous as an author and political figure. Welcome to the Gay Cable Network.
Thank you.
I recently met you.
Not gay affairs, it's gay rights. Affairs I leave to you. I handle rights.
I see. Okay. I recently met you at the Gay and Lesbian Synagogue over Yom Kippur with an estimated crowd of 2,200 people. What were your impressions of the synagogue, and do you have anything similar to that in Israel?
I'm not a religious person. I don't worship. I don't attend services. Not on Yom Kippur or on any other day. So I don't know if I cannot compare it to anything else. What we don't have and we should have is a kind of communal feeling around the same purpose and with the same warmth as I experienced in during the service. It's got nothing to do with religion. It's got to do with a strong sense of a community that has got something in common, that expresses itself freely, and this is something that is amazing.
Do you feel that it is wise for the gay community to be investing its time and resources into gay organizations as opposed to integrating themselves into mainstream society?
As long as the mainstream regards them as a separate community, they have to. In the long run, naturally, if I believe they're 100% equal and I fight for their equal rights, my ideal is that one shouldn't even know the difference and there shouldn't be a difference, but as long as the outside regards the gay community as something different, as something inferior, as something to be aware of or afraid of or discriminated against, then one has to unite in order to assert oneself and claim its equal position. One day, I hope it will disappear.
She long worked, by the way, for a two-state solution all through her life. But she held the Knesset's first day-long conference on gay rights. She claimed in that conference, King David and Jonathan were lovers, and she was screamed down. She marched to the first Pride Parade in Tel Aviv. She said, "Our Messiah will not come from heaven, but from recognizing human rights." Wow.
Great.
She was fearless.
Amazing. Well, I guess when you have a father who's a famous general, that raises you in the right, whatever, what do I know?
And by the way, in Senegal, 2 men were jailed for 3 months and fined for spreading the false news that the new prime minister tolerates homosexuality.
No, we can't have that.
They were reacting to his welcoming a French politician who spoke at a university in favor of same-sex marriage and got booed down. It's a majority Muslim nation.
All right, moving on to AIDS news.
Yes.
Well, today, as we tape on Wednesday, is HIV Long-Term Survivors Awareness Day, June 5th. And congratulations. So we celebrate, first of all, our associate producer, Bill Ballman, who is a very long-term survivor.
Since
and
1988, I think you said, or seven, yeah.
1987.
Congratulations, Bill.
And we know people who've been living with HIV longer than that.
And we used to work with a guy named Jeff Birchfield, who won a Keith Haring art competition at Sage. And we have a picture of him there with his artwork. Jeff, we work with. And one of the artworks that he won for is this one that says, "Old age is for sissies," and that's a self-portrait of Jeff.
Great. Congratulations to GMHC. Their AIDS walk this year raised $1.872 million. The theme was Stride Past Stigma. 9,000 people walked. Now this is down from their height, obviously, but more than the 700,000 raised in 1986 when they started, with 6,000 people walking.
And so the CDC this week finalized its endorsement of what's called DoxyPEP for men who have sex with men and trans women taking the antibiotic doxycycline post-exposure, especially if they're at high risk for STIs, especially if they've had chlamydia, gonorrhea, or syphilis in the last year. It should be prescribed and taken within 72 hours of exposure.
Meaning sex.
Yes.
So look into that. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that HIV positive people can breastfeed if their virus is undetectable, and should be consistent about doing it for 6 months so they don't disrupt their own gut. But this is amazing news, because breastfeeding used to be considered one of the easiest ways to transmit, so now this is different. And Ohio is gearing up to try to pass legislation in a bipartisan coalition that would repeal criminalization of HIV-positive people and to lift the ban on blood donation. There have been 200-plus prosecutions of people with HIV in Ohio.
Okay.
Entertainment news.
Entertainment news. Start with a correction. Last week I said that Richard Dreyfuss denigrated Barbara Streisand over her direction of the movie Nuts. He did denigrate her, but they co-starred in the movie. Martin Ritt directed, and thanks to our viewer Mark for the correction.
Reminder that this weekend Queer Planet starts airing on Peacock. This is the queer animals documentary. Should make a splash. You and I weren't so crazy about the play Slave Play by Jeremy O. Harris, but it is coming to HBO on June 20th and will be streaming on Max. It got 12 Tony nominations, and it has significant gay content, looking at interracial couples. But it's going to be a documentary about the making of it. Well, if you want significant gay content, I would recommend Hacks on Max, if that's the channel you're looking at. Just finished its 3rd season, has been renewed for a 4th season, and is getting praise to the skies, as it well should be. Gene Smart is just amazing.
And why are they saying it's riffing on Seinfeld?
Because Seinfeld has a particular attitude toward stand-up comedy and how it should be done, and trusting the audience, and Hacks has a different approach and a different analysis, so they're juxtaposing the two. Frankly, Hacks is a much smarter show. Seinfeld was a wonderful show in many ways. I will watch old episodes of that sometimes, but Hacks is really...
Okay. Reminder that the memorial for Joan Gibbs, great activist, is Saturday, June 8th at 2 p.m. at 320 West 37th Street. This is the kind of thing we put in our email, more information.
And a reminder that the Tribeca Film Festival has just started, and they have a cornucopia of LGBTQ films, an amazing lineup. So many we can't even begin to talk about them, but in our show note, our newsletter, we will link to the page in the Tribeca Film Festival program that lists everything, which is just astonishing. The festival runs through June 16th.
And this Sunday, June the 9th at 2 o'clock, storytelling about LGBTQ ancestors at the Stonewall National Monument.
Oh, nice. And also currently on at a place called the Romer Hotel in Hell's Kitchen.
Oh, yes.
On 8th Avenue at 51st Street, photo exhibit by a wonderful photographer and activist, Leandro Justin, who I got to know when we started the Queer Liberation March a few years ago. He was one of the main photographers. and he does the most amazing photographs. So
There's one of them on the screen there from the
yes,
Queer Liberation
the
March.
first one, I think.
We're having that Queer Liberation March again this year, aren't we?
Yes, on the 30th.
Meet at Sheridan Square at 11 a.m. And you know, we talk about a lot of New York events, but aren't you all coming to New York for Pride? I mean,
And doing the Drag March Friday night and the Dyke March Saturday night and the Queer Liberation March.
I know you
or
all
the
have
Pride
your
Parade.
own events in your own cities, and that's fantastic.
Fantastic.
That's even better.
Yeah. Well, do something. Let's put it that way. It's
Well, I
Pride
remember
Month,
when
do
the Manhattan
something.
Parade was sort of like the, one of the only ones, of course, Los Angeles, San Francisco, places like that, because people from the surrounding areas wanted to come to New York
Right.
rather than march in their hometowns. But now they want to march in their hometowns, which is better.
And they're all over New York. The Whitney Museum hosted the Philadelphia Gay Men's Chorus in a very colorful display of rainbow-colored shirts.
That looks fantastic.
It really does. And a couple of other things. The screenwriter of Ghost, Bruce Joel Rubin, 81 years old, has officially come out. It's never too late. He says,
It is never too late.
He says, I was always gay. I always knew. My wife of 50 years always knew. He has written a new memoir called It's Only a Movie. He said he hid it from public notice because he was afraid it would confuse people. He also didn't think they were ready for his S&M lifestyle.
Well, listen, people weren't ready for a lot of things. I mean, Sarah Schulman posted a letter on Facebook this week about a rejection she got in 1983, saying a lot of our more conservative, librarians are not going to want a book with this kind of lesbian content.
Well, the first person to get a big mainstream LGBTQ book published, I think, was Urvashi Bad.
Well, there was The Well of Loneliness,
Well, yes. Yeah. Bad memories of that. But I have also picked up on something recently. I may have mentioned it briefly here, but I finally decided to start. I got really bored or something and started watching finally on Netflix Orange is the New Black.
Oh, yeah.
I have been now ridiculed by my friends for being so late to come to it. 7 seasons, 13 episodes each season, 91 hours of programming.
You're doing it or you've done it?
I'm in almost at the end of season 6. I have like 20 hours to go or less, a little less.
Wow.
It's an amazing show. And I know a lot of people who gave up on it early. They just, wandered away. It is worth sticking with. It is really clever. It couldn't be more lesbian. And is a consistently entertaining and engaging show.
And by the way, before we leave gay books, let's not forget, Gore Vidal's, gay books, John Ritchie's, the Gordon Merrick novels.
Yeah, yes, and I should clarify that this Urvashi's book was nonfiction.
Yes.
So maybe that's the distinction I want to make. But she was the first to get a big contract from a major publisher for that.
June 12th is the 5th anniversary of the Pulse Massacre. There will be an action by Gays Against Guns on the Christopher Street Piers at 7:30, and there's a musical coming out about it at the end of the month in New York. Well,
a musical about a massacre.
Well, I mean, come on, they did, the Scottsboro Boys. I mean, they've done musicals about.
They have.
It's a show with music. It's not happy times.
Okay,
But it's Pride, and we hope you have a great time.
And we'll be right back here next week to tell you more about what's going on. Bye.